If you listen to this show with any regularity and appreciate the service it provides, can you please take a minute today and rate and review us on iTunes? Just search for the term marijuana in iTunes, find Marijuana Today Daily, and leave a rating and review. It's a huge help in boosting the growth of our audience and takes just a minute or two to do. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Tuesday, July 25th, 2017, and you're tuned in to episode 295 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story of the day is the good news out of Carson City, Nevada, that a judge has rejected a legal bid by a group of liquor distributors seeking an injunction against an emergency measure recently enacted by state officials allowing non-liquor distributors to get in on the legal marijuana distribution game during this early phase where medical dispensaries can sell to adult use customers. This is a story we've been covering for a while now. Yesterday's decision by Carson City District Judge James Todd Russell will allow Nevada's dispensaries to keep getting deliveries, which is good news for the state's consumers, both medical and adult use. In his ruling, Judge Russell cited the loss of state tax revenue as the main reason for his decision, saying an injunction would reduce legal marijuana sales, thus depressing the state's cut of the action. In the wake of the ruling, a lawyer representing the liquor distributors say they will now focus on convincing the tax commission that the distribution monopoly granted to them for the first 18 months of the program, set to begin in January, was worth keeping. We'll keep watching and reporting back on this one as events warrant. Tom Angel over MassRoots has a great roundup of a bevy of legislative actions set to take place this week in the U.S. Congress, with weighty votes and debates set on topics like medical marijuana use by veterans, protection for state legal marijuana from federal prosecution, and water rights for hemp and cannabis cultivators. There are few people around with a better handle on cannabis issues in Congress than Tom, so I'll just refer you over to his piece on MassRoots for all the details. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Our final top story of the day is a great long-form piece in the New York Times that takes a comprehensive look at the ever-complicated issue of drug testing on the job, with nearly half of all job applicants in one Ohio town failing a pre-employment drug test. With more and more states legalizing marijuana running alongside a sharp rise in nationwide opioid use, the percentage of failed drug tests in the realm of employment is climbing alongside. That is having very real effects on some businesses who have had to turn down extra orders for the lack of clean testing employees. It's having an equally impactful effect on employees and job hunters who can be boxed out of jobs and promotions should they fail a drug test. While there's no denying that there are certain jobs that don't mix with active drug use, there's also a danger in blanket policies that would restrict, say, a person working in the food industry or in an office job from being employed should they also consume cannabis after work. Click over for the full read on this one. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz it in headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Extractioneering, makers of the finest legal marijuana concentrates and extracts around. Seriously, just pop over to their website, found at extractioneering.com, and check out their work for yourself. They have lots of great photos and a gorgeously produced video made by the folks over at Weed Maps that highlight the golden ambers and otherworldly glows of Extractioneering's cannabis sugars, crumbles, and syrups. That's extractioneering.com, which is spelled like engineering, but with the word extraction. Extractioneering.com. All right, time for the blitz. Picking back up on the issue of drug testing on the job, we have a discussion here in my home state of Maine about how businesses should handle drug testing for marijuana use now that it's legal for adults to grow, possess, and consume. During a hearing held yesterday by lawmakers working on the rules and regulations for next year's commercial market, an official with the state's Department of Labor said that there currently are no laws on the state books that let businesses fire workers for failing marijuana drug tests. Unlike states like California and Massachusetts, where employers are explicitly allowed to fire workers for marijuana use, no such legislative protections exist in Maine. During yesterday's hearing, Julie Rabinowitz, Director of Policy, Operations, and Communications for the Maine Department of Labor, urged lawmakers to take action on building employer protections into the law after informing them of the existing legislative gap. This is another one we'll be watching closely. Yesterday, the Ohio Department of Commerce and State Board of Pharmacy received approval for an additional $6 million in budget to fund the startup of the Ohio Medical Marijuana Control Program, which will oversee the medical marijuana system set to roll out next year. That amount is in addition to $5 million already approved last month and will go towards paying for a seed-to-sale tracking system, setting up a toll-free line for marijuana consumers, and to cover anticipated legal costs. Cleveland.com has a good breakdown of where all that money is going. Click on over if you're interested. Our next two stories are one of those same story, different state kind of combos, with Colorado up first, asking whether a recent ruling in Massachusetts protecting the rights of workers to use medical marijuana applies in their state. The short answer is no, but sort of, with there being no direct action for Colorado consumers resulting from the outcome of the Massachusetts case, but there being a subtle pressure pushing things in a more progressive way now that some case law has been established in Massachusetts. The Westword's piece focuses on the case of Brandon Coates, a man living with paralysis from a car accident suffered in his teens, who's fired from Dish Networks because he failed a drug test due to his use of medical marijuana. In 2015, Mr. Coates was on the losing end of a Colorado Supreme Court decision that found his firing to be justified. The second headline in this two-story combo looks at the drug testing situation in California, where the language of last fall's Proposition 64 lays out the rights of employers to fire any employee failing a drug test. Even with that right, though, there's anecdotal evidence that a lot of companies in California are ignoring positive tests for marijuana during pre-employment screenings. Michigan Live is a good piece up that pulls together a bunch of stats that all show the strong growth in that state's ranks of marijuana users, both medical and adult use. With almost 220,000 registered medical marijuana users as of September 30th of last year, Michigan has one of the larger patient populations in the country and an adult use fan base just as healthy. There are a lot of charts and numbers on this one, so click over for the full dive in. After Alaska's Marijuana Control Office recently met to vote on a number of items, 12 agenda actions were put up for public comment, with one of them being a 3-2 vote on a proposal banning licensed marijuana businesses from entering into lease agreements with landlords that give them a percentage of sales in lieu of rent, saying that such contracts turn landlords into licensees by extension without having to actually go through the licensing process. The board voted in a series of restrictions that prohibit any kind of revenue sharing agreements between landlords and marijuana businesses. And finally for today, my friend Shalene Title, who in full disclosure is a regular on our weekly podcast Marijuana Today, wrote a good piece up in Leafly looking at the evolution of Massachusetts adult use law, which regular listeners know has been in a bit of flux in recent days as the State House and Senate battled to find a compromise between their disparate versions. As Shalene is reporting, the new compromise bill that emerged from the 6-person conference committee has a number of key criminal justice provisions, like protections for people with marijuana charges on their record in participating in the legal marijuana industry as owners, investors, and workers. Nice work, Shalene, not only for the write-up, but for also being one of the key reasons why those protections were written into the law in the first place. This is another excellent one to read in full. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at MJTodayDaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Extractioneering, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing on over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with Marijuana Today.
One take, Shay. One take.